we'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know where.
Hello, this is Kate Dixon, and on behalf of everyone at your town council, we hope you're well and keeping safe. Although we can't enjoy the full long weekend of VE Day celebrations together as we had planned, our friends from the Talisman Theatre have come up with a short recording to help us conjure up some of the memories and feelings of Kenilworth residents on that day. We hope you enjoy the recording and the thoughts these may evoke, particularly in these testing times. Now here's Peter James from the Talisman Theatre to tell you a little more about it.
In 2018, it occurred to me that as the number of survivors of my age group shrank, it might be useful to preserve a record of their memories of when they were children in wartime. So 15 of us met up over a period of a few months to chat into microphones, and a selection of our thoughts and anecdotes was gathered into a book, which we called Kenilworth Kids in Wartime. From this book, the Talisman techies have made their own selection, which, though not in any way claiming to be a complete picture, they hope will give at least a flavour of the time. Pray silence for the Kenilworth old codgers, who then were all schoolchildren.
When the school filled after the evacuees came, we walked up to the parochial hall for lessons. Lots of rote learning, tables and spellings, but also a lot of art and craft, ration book covers, blotters, and the graceful little wooden doll figures that you could give to your girlfriend to pin on her frock.
We played being Spitfires, roaring around the playground, arms outstretched, with added engine noise.
We knitted squares to sew into blankets for soldiers.
We frayed cotton cloth into threads to make K-pop for sailors' May Wests.
We were taken out to collect rose hips for syrup.
Acorns for farmers' pigs.
Older ones were released from school to work on farms. Potato picking, pea picking.
When I was sent to Snelson's farm, I saw a pig killed and singed over a fire to get rid of the bristles.
John Snelson's wife was Norwegian, and their daughter was a blonde bombshell who had all the lads drooling over her, me included, until I watched her hold newly born piglets upside down by their back legs, so her dad could castrate them with an open razor. Never fancied her after that.
There were queues at every shop. My mum used to take me shopping because it was okay for kids to keep their mum's places in one queue while she went to another.
Then there was the rationing. You had to register for each food at a specific shop. You just couldn't go anywhere you liked. So you'd be in half a dozen queues.
We had a shop that sold sweets, only with coupons, 2 ounces a week. I used to pinch the coupons my dad had to cut out of the books and give them to my mates. Very popular I was. What I didn't know was that he could only get as much from the wholesale as he had coupons to hand in. So his stocks went down, and when he found out why, he had a word with me.
We used to eat anything. We ate OXO cubes.
And cough sweets.
What was best was when Hickman's had bananas in.
I never had one till 1951, when I was cycling with my mates in France.
When the town adopted a ship, the crew members came on a goodwill tour and brought a box of bananas. Miss Marlowe did a maths lesson, measuring and dividing. We had 3/4 of an inch each.
She married a Polish airman stationed at Baggington, and she did cartwheels in a pleated skirt. Very popular that was.
Some believed that if you took the banana skins back, they'd refill them.
When I went for an interview for secondary school, the head asked me how I'd describe a banana to a little sister who'd never seen one before. I said it was like a new moon. Very poetic. I reckon that got me in.
The Talisman did a lot during the war. Socials, whist drives, concerts and so on. They took entertainments to the army camps at Stoneleigh and Baggington. They timed their shows to fit in with the full moon.
It was so dark. Our lav was up at the garden and my dad used to stand halfway up and shine a torch for me.
Batteries were like gold, especially number 8s for the small torches.
But you could always get big high-tension batteries for the radio. Good for morale, they said. And official notices.
Itmar, much blinding. Monday night at 8. We all listened to the same programmes and talked about them next day. Told the same jokes.
My dad loved Jimmy James. I remember him really laughing at one joke. My brother's so lazy. I went to see him last night and he was crying. I said, "What's the matter?" And he said, "Take me away from the fire. My knees are burning."
Saturday afternoon at the Flicks. The old Alex. The noise! You couldn't hear the film. The usherette was a middle-aged woman, and she'd scream, "I know who you are and I'll tell you more about you." One time a big girl had her baby sister on her lap, and because she was wriggling, she put her on the floor. The little girl crawled under the seats. They found her 6 rows down.
Remember make, do and mend? Sheets turned sides to centre.
Dad's shirts cut down for lads.
Darning carpets.
Girls growing taller and having their skirts cut short and a contrasting band sewn in, then the cut-off bit replaced.
I knew where every colour in my jumpers came from, because there was always an old one unravelling by my mum's feet as she knitted it into a new one.
Us boys had darning lessons at school.
Of course, the big event was the bomb in the square. Harry Lord was allowed to have the parquet floor blocks from the Globe, and they laid them in the foyer of the old theatre.
I was in school and the windows in High Street were all blown out. We legged it down to Abbey End to get shrapnel, but they'd cordoned it off.
Half of Glasspool's chemist was blown away. And Mr. Glasspool had left his cash box in the bedroom, and my dad, who was a warden, went to get it. He saw Glasspool's stiff collar floating in the gazunder and brought it down. He never got a word of thanks for fetching the cash box, so he didn't tell Glasspool where he'd found the collar.
We lived in Arthur Street, and an unexploded shell fell down just from our house. My dad was standing at the front door watching the blitz, and when he rushed back in, my mum said his hair was standing on end, like Stan Laurel's. Next morning we dug a piece of shrapnel out the lintel just above where he'd been standing. Mrs. Collette, opposite, caught the blast and was killed, but the hole the shell made was no bigger than a bucket.
One day, strings of silver plastic fell out the sky. Window, it was called, dropped by German planes to block the radar. When I took some home, my mum said,
"Get rid of it, it's German."
We used some of it to create Neptune's Cave in that year's pantomime.
Though our wider experience of the world was more constricted in those pre-computer days, in many ways we were physically freer than today's children, at least in our day-to-day lives. Free to roam at will for all the time we wished, off all day with pop and sandwiches to the common, the woods, the ponds, the park. It takes a village to bring up a child, the old saying goes. Well, Kenilworth in the 1940s was just such a place. We hope you've enjoyed this 1940s gossip. Old wives' tales, and old men's too, always contain truth, even if it is a personal version.
The German delegation, headed by General Jodl, Germany's Chief of Staff, have arrived for the fateful ceremony. The General puts his signature to the document, which acknowledges the complete defeat of the German armed forces by those of Britain, Russia and the United States.
Reads, we, the undersigned, acting by authority of the German High Command, do hereby surrender unconditionally to the Supreme Commander, Allied Expeditionary Force, all German forces on land,
The great news ran through the land. Yesterday morning, at 2:41 a.m., at General Eisenhower's headquarters, General Jodl, the representative of the German High Command, signed the act of unconditional surrender of all German land, sea and air forces in Europe to the Allied Expeditionary Forces. Tomorrow will also be Victory in Europe Day. Advance Britannia! Long live the cause of freedom. God save the King.
Kenilworth Kids in Wartime was written by Peter James. The readings were by Rex Satchwell, Alfie Sully, Lauren McCann, Maggie Brayshaw, Alais McCluskey and David Charlton. Technical production was by Richard Crump. The executive producer was Rod Wilkinson.